Welcome to the Elk Junkie podcast. I am your host, Lance Garner. Dave Morris will not be joining us today. Dave is on vacation with his family in the lovely islands of Hawaii. So while Dave is basking in the sun under the palm trees and eating Hawaiian shaved ice, which, by the way, I must say is one of my favorite things to eat, I get the incredible opportunity to hang out with Dirk Durham, or as many of you know him as, the Bugler. If you think you've heard it all from Dirk, well, trust me, you haven't. We covered a lot of topics to include Dirk before the Bugler, the new Phelps game calls, what goes into making a new call, Dirk's most memorable hunts, which, by the way, I was not anticipating his response, and by his response, you know what he values, social media and the hunting industry. Dirk also shares advice and lessons learned, and once again, I was not anticipating his response. I figured he would provide some advice on calling, but he throws us a curveball and talks about being kind to others, being authentic, and other areas of advice. So grab a comfy spot to listen and move aside all distractions, because this is going to be a great podcast that you don't want to miss. So we will see you on the other side. So how you been? You been pretty busy?
Oh man, it's been so busy. It's been crazy. Been just traveling and working and trying to balance home life and work life. And yeah, it's in summertime, August 1st hits and everybody else is saying, man, there's only 30 days left till September. And I'm usually pumping my brakes a little bit because there's always the last minute stuff you got to get done. And I want to have a little bit more summer to enjoy before September. I love elk season, but I love nothing like it. But I still like my summertime too.
Yeah, we all do. It's funny. I was thinking September 1st was just a week away. So I was yesterday just starting to pack stuff in the trailer, getting things ready and getting geared up. And I'm like, wait a minute. Looked at the calendar and realized, no, I still got about 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was thinking I was going to have, September 1st hit. I'm like, oh, I got plenty of time. It's a month. Well, my daughter got married the first week of August. So most of that week we were getting ready for her wedding on the first Saturday there. And then the last week of August, I've got a big kind of a meeting retreat with First Light hunting apparel stuff to do, company stuff. And that's going to eat up most of my last week. So, man, I got this week and that's about it. So it's time to panic pack, I guess.
Well, I was glad you were able to carve off some time for us. I was really appreciate that. Yeah, I saw on Instagram that your daughter got married. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
So
Yeah,
the young man looks like he's a MMA fighter. Is that what I saw in there?
yeah. He retired.
Oh,
He fought professionally for a little while, and then as he's going through college, and he just graduated from college and got his degree. He's a physical therapist now, so he still does a lot of jujitsu tournaments,
uh-huh.
but he's going to avoid the full contact, of MMA fighting. He's like, I got through that, without getting a lifelong injury to my head or something, and it's time to maybe, you know, because like jujitsu, I mean, you can get hurt, but usually if you're performing or competing at a higher level, everybody's pretty respectful of, waiting for the tap or whatever. You don't just go out there wrenching on people's stuff trying to hurt them.
Right.
It's bigger than that. So
Well, I really admire these fighters. I really wasn't into MMA fighting at all until maybe a couple of years ago. A friend got me into watching it, and man, it's impressive. Both their mental toughness, their physical toughness,
oh yeah,
I kind of came into it thinking, well, they're just I'll be honest, just a bunch of tough folks, kind of thugs, if you will. But watching it, you learn so much more about them. That it's a sport, it's a professional sport, and they're good eggs.
yeah.
Both men and women, good eggs. They just enjoy the fighting, and I'm really admire them. They everything they have to do to prep for these fights and do it, so it's impressive.
Yeah. I think it's a good place or a good thing to get into if you really want to grow as a person.
Yeah.
There's a lot of art and a lot of, deep stuff to the MMA and the jiu-jitsu community to where, they're always trying to make it better. So,
Yeah.
I think it's really cool.
So does he hunt?
Not yet, but he just got passed his hunter's ed course and his bow hunter ed course. I gave him one of my old bows and I'm getting him geared up to go. So he should get out
Nice.
this year. I'm not sure how much because like I said, he just got done with college and been interviewing for some jobs, and who knows, he may may get a job right away that he can't get away from, and it's hard. But I'm hoping him and my son will be able to get out and go and chase elk around maybe on a weekend or something.
Oh, that'll be nice. You could take him out and you could put one of those elk in a rear naked choke or something.
Yeah.
make him
Oh yeah,
make him tap out.
that's right. Tap out, tag out.
Yeah, well, congratulations. That's awesome. So I had actually met you and Jason, oh, it was a couple years ago here at the Utah Expo. And one of the things I was surprised, I didn't realize Phelps made turkey calls. And so, I came by the booth and I was checking out the elk calls and everything. But and then when I noticed you guys had turkey calls, I was checking those out, and you demonstrated some of those for me. I was impressed how well you could call with the turkey calls. Do you turkey hunt?
Yeah, a little bit. I've turkey hunted since I was probably 13 years
Uh
old.
huh.
That's when that's the first mouth call I ever used was a turkey call. My cousin from Florida got me turkey calling, and then later on, I started elk calling, when I was about 15. So, yeah, it's kind of a natural progression. Once you kind of get through all the tickly gaggy stuff with a turkey call and kind of figure that out, and then I kind of warmed right up to elk calls.
Yeah, well, I was impressed. That's what I ended up buying. When I was down there, I bought some of the turkey calls, and yeah, I really enjoyed using them. I've been turkey hunting for a few years now, and yeah, I love it. It's not quite elk hunting, but it's still a lot of fun.
Yeah, turkeys frustrate the heck out of me. They're just, oh man, they're like the dumbest bird, but the most smart. They're so sneaky or smart. They're
Yeah,
wary, but they can pull some really dumb stuff. Like, why did they do that? What? They'll walk right to whatever calls like one time, and the next time you throw everything at them in the world, and nothing works.
yeah.
Uh, Jason and I went hunting with Chris Parrish. And Chris Parrish for the turkey calling community. He's the most decorated of all time turkey callers, right?
Oh,
He's
wow.
like he's a wizard with turkey calls. And we were in Kansas, and it was pretty late. I think must have been middle to late May, and not ideal turkey calling conditions. But man, we had turkeys going, and even with somebody that's a master, he spent his whole lifetime working these turkey calls, and still, there was some frustrations there. Turkeys kind of do what they want when they want, and
Yeah,
same with elk. I think that's kind of the same kind of deal. So
yeah, exactly. So I'm curious. Everyone knows you as the Bugler, right? So kind
yeah.
of who was Dirk Durham before the Bugler? I mean, what were you doing before all this?
Well, yeah, man, I'm just a blue collar working stiff for a lot of years. I graduated from high school. I went right to work for a tire outfit, a tire company here in the Northwest. All the Northwest people would recognize the name Les Schwab
Yeah,
Tires.
yep.
I worked for those guys for 18 years, and I was in management, and I was going to have to move up or move out, right? I was assistant manager, and my next position would be manager, and I'd have to move and change stores again, which I'd already changed stores several times. And like the last six guys from the store I worked in had gone to California to be store managers, and I'm just too much of a country boy. I know there's some beautiful places in California, but I'm just like, no, my kids are, they're good kids and they're a good spot, and I hate to uproot them and take them to who knows where, because whenever you get to be on that manager approved list, then you just kind of go where they tell you to go. So at that point, I decided to kind of bow out and start looking for something else. And I was fortunate enough to find a job with Night Force Optics in Orfino, Idaho,
Yeah,
and which I graduated from high school there. So it was a good homecoming for me to get back. And at Night Force, there was a lot of my old high school chums I'd went to school with, and that was awesome to go back to work there. Really cool atmosphere. Everybody was hunters. Night Force is known for long range rifle scopes, right? And military grade scopes and stuff like that. But it's funny, most of the guys there are all bow hunters. So
oh,
like during September, it's a ghost town. Everybody takes vacation and everybody's gone. Not so much during rifle season.
yeah.
So it was a really fun place to work for. I worked there for about 9 years, and then this opportunity came along with Jason to work full time for Phelps, and I jumped on it. So here
Nice.
we are today.
Nice. And then I guess you guys just kind of joined with Meat Eater, right? Did Meat Eater kind of buy out Phelps, but you still got the Phelps brand?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Meat Eater, they did an acquisition, bought out Phelps, and kept Jason on. And I don't know what his title, if he's CEO or I don't know, founder, whatever you want to call it. But he runs the day-to-day operations of the company just like always.
Yeah.
The cool part for him was he was a Phelps game calls was like a part-time job for him. That was his side hustle. That was
Right.
whenever he get home from his normal day job, then work half the night doing this stuff and with his wife, and they put in. It's funny, people see the kind of the glorious things. You see the cool calls and you see the people's success that use the calls, and it's like, oh yeah, that's cool at Phelps, but a lot of times they don't get to see behind the scenes and see that grind.
Right.
The Jason and his wife put in a lot of years grinding it out to get them to where they were at. So that was really cool to see them have that come to pass. And then I was lucky enough to stay on with them and continue to do my job, sales and marketing for Phelps, and it's a perfect fit for me because I'm passionate about elk hunting and silly crap and product development. So yeah, it's a perfect fit for me too. So I'm glad I'm still on there.
Yeah, you know what's interesting now with like social media and how we use that for advertising and everything else, and you guys use that really well. I mean, I don't know, what's your thoughts about social media and how it kind of plays into everything?
That's a slippery slope. I feel like I think in general, social media, everybody kind of gets to show their best angle, their best.
Yeah.
Retake that picture. That one makes me look fat, or
Yeah.
or whatever. But we try to be as real as we can,
Uh-huh.
on social. We keep things, pretty PG. We don't want to offend anybody because there's a lot of folks with families, and or maybe they just don't like any kind of foul language or anything. So we try to church it up as good as we can, and we just try to be real and just kind of let our personalities come out in it, and so that's been really good for us. But there's a lot of social media out there. You just got to tune it out. If you watch the conditions of all the political climate and the world around you on social media, then it's pretty grim. It's pretty ugly.
Yeah.
But then you have to step outside and you look at the neighbor's house and you wave and they wave back, and you see
Yeah.
people at the grocery store. And I used to live in a pretty small town. I live in a pretty big town now, but even in this big town, there's a lot of different political views, but everybody's just kind of like, yeah, you do you, I'll do me. I feel like people get along a lot better in real life than
Right.
what social media kind of portrays. But I think it's one of those necessary evils. We got to kind of have it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Do you guys mostly use Instagram? Do you guys use any other platforms? I know obviously YouTube, but like the kids nowadays, right? TikTok. Do you guys use TikTok for anything?
yeah, no, we don't. And maybe that's that's probably dumb of us. If you listen to Gary Vaynerchuk talk or Gary V, he talks about you got to be in all the cutting edge
Yeah.
social stuff, whether it's TikTok or Snapchat or whatever. But
Yeah.
I don't. It doesn't really seem like it's our forte,
Yeah.
and we try to kind of stick to what we know and what we're good at, and which will probably be a demise of us at some point. Like, oh man, we should have really got on that new whatever it is social platform and continue to do what we do. But yeah, and it's tough. Social media, it takes up a lot of time, and there's a lot of thought that
Hmm.
goes into it. And if you have to cook up a whole bunch of different recipes for different platforms, then man, that's a big chore. So right
Yeah.
now we don't have that bandwidth at all. So
Well, like you said, earlier on, you said it kind of looks glorious to everyone else, right? When they just see the video or whatever it may be, but there's so much work that goes into it. Even me and my podcast partner, Dave Morris, we started this. It looked fun. We wanted to get involved in the hunting industry, but suddenly you find out that a 45-minute podcast might take you 6 hours. I mean, by the time you get done editing and you do all the things, you got to create the images or whatever else prepping, it's a lot of work. And so, like you said, there's
Sure.
just a lot that goes on behind it that can really overwhelm you. So you kind of got to pick and choose, I guess, what platforms you use and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, yeah, Jason Phelps, he got me some more calls, cool, man. But nobody sees Jason Phelps at 10 o'clock at night making diaphragms or,
Yeah.
or tying lanyards or putting putting tube covers on tubes. I mean, it's kind of it's not that cool of a job in the end, but yeah, I mean, it's work. I mean, I
Yeah.
try to tell my kids are always talk about, oh, this. Well, my dad always told me. He said, there's two kind of jobs. He said there's that danged old job you just left, and there's that really good one you're going to. So, and I try to tell my kids, work is exactly that. It's work.
Yeah.
If it wasn't work, they wouldn't pay you to show up. It'd be like you would be a volunteer at that point. So
Yeah.
there's a certain amount of like work that you got to put in to get a paycheck. And I think sometimes in the outdoor industry, people don't really understand that. They see, oh, you guys, all you guys do is blow elk bugles for a living. Cool. I want that job. Well, there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
There's all the video editing. There's all the just everything that kind of goes along with it. There's a lot of work, and sometimes when some people get to go home at 5 o'clock, I'm still here, doing stuff, and at 8 o'clock, just making sure I have everything taken care of. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's work, but I do enjoy it, so I'm not complaining at all.
Yeah, you
So,
guys look like you do have some fun, so it does look like a good time. So
huh,
let's kind of talk more about these new calls you guys came out with. I'm pretty
yeah.
excited about them. Uh, the ones I saw, you got the metal bugle tube, you've got this mini amp mouth reed call, and then the young and calf call. So on the metal bugle tube, I mean, what made you guys come up with the idea of using a metal tube?
So there's a guy that's a buddy of mine that I actually used to work with at Night Force. He's an engineer, and he came to us and he said, "Hey, I got an idea. And you might think I'm crazy, but hear me out. I was thinking of a metal bugle tube." And I'm like, "Okay, okay." So he brought me up a couple prototypes. He's like, "Try these out for a little bit." So I blew on them a bit, and one thing that stood out to me is how loud the high pitched ringing note was.
Hmm.
Um, it didn't have a lot of low end, but which I like a lot of low end in my bugle tubes normally, but this thing was so piercingly loud on the high end. I'm like, man, that's kind of cool. So we talked more with him, and he'd actually pitched it to another company, and they said, "No, we don't want to do it." So we're like, I think we'll make a go of this. So we worked with him for quite a while, for almost 2 years, on this project, getting this thing refined to what we have today. A few different iterations of the bugle, and then the mouthpieces and everything, and just kind of come to fruition here this summer. COVID has really kind of slowed down
Oh
production of that
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
We should have had this thing done, wrapped up, ready to go at the first of the year, but with COVID and everything else, just kind of kept dragging it out. But I guess better late than never, right? But yeah, it's been exciting, and the external mouthpiece that went on it, we wanted to do something for those folks. You just can't use a diaphragm,
right.
you know. And there's a lot of tubes out there that work. Some work better than others, but we wanted something that was easy to use, something that would fit ergonomically in your mouth. A lot of those are just kind of hunky and clunky or junky. And then have something that was very capable to make a lot of really realistic elk noises, not just a fluty tooty bugle, right?
Yeah,
We wanted people to be able to feel good about the noises they're making and make accurate elk sounds. So, and I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons why this whole project took so long. We just wanted to be something. We wanted to be something we'd be really proud of. That when people use it, they're like, "Whoa, wow, that's really cool."
yeah.
So anyway, yeah, it's a cool tube. And whether you use the diaphragms with the flared mouthpiece or use the external bugle, the easy bugler mouthpiece, it's crushingly loud, crystal clear, clean notes. Yeah, it's really cool.
So which one's better for pine cone baseball, the metal one or the
Um,
one of the other ones?
oh, the metal one for sure. It's like gonna knock it out of the park.
Yeah, I like the idea of the that kind of that um, easy bugler mouthpiece that you've got because I think there's a lot of people, like you said, that don't know how to really bugle with the diaphragm. They struggle with it. My daughter, she's one that's
Mhm.
probably never going to take the time to learn a mouthpiece. I mean a diaphragm. So she'd rather use something like a
Right.
mouthpiece. So I think it's a great idea to have.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, it's to make the very best noises with it. Of course, you have to practice a bit,
Sure.
but right out of the box, I mean, it's not that hard to make a bugle with it and chuckles and stuff. So, um, yeah, I'm pretty excited about it actually. So
Nice.
it's a long time coming.
Oh, that's great. Now, what about the mini ones? What kind of made you guys come up with the idea of come up with some mini amp diaphragms?
Well, I've been doing these elk-shaped camps with Dan Staten for
Uh-huh.
about 3 years, and then I've been going to trade shows for a really long time, and you get to talking to people, and I'd say probably 1 out of every 10 people you talk to has a narrow palate, and some people grown men, they have such a narrow palate they cannot even make a noise with a standard diaphragm, can't even make a squeak out of it, just because it does not fit,
Hmm.
and we like through the years we just get more and more requests like, man, are you guys ever going to make a narrow palette diaphragm? So we went to work. So it's the same amp frame, it's got the little dome, the metal dome on it, but it's 20% smaller. The frame itself is 20% smaller, and then the plastic, no, excuse me, the tape part, the tape that kind of seals up around it, that's 20% smaller too. So that thing just fits really well. It's
Yeah.
tiny, really. So already, since we've launched this, we've got tons of people sending in, you know, direct messages or cross social or emails that said, "Hey, wow, I've never been able to use a diaphragm before. These are awesome. I got good
Yeah.
quality sounds, and it's easy to use. And thank you, it works."
Yeah.
So
You know,
that's pretty satisfying.
I actually use a small diaphragm for doing my cow calling. I struggle a little bit
Yeah.
with the bigger ones for the cow calling. Bugle just fine, but for some reason I struggle more with the cow calling, and so I have a small one that I use. That's why I was excited that you guys came out with these because I'm going to try them out and see how they work for me because it's just nice to have something. It gives you a little different tone, different sound. Granted, it would be nice for me to always have the same call in my mouth and not have to switch it out. But, for
Right.
me, that's what
Right.
kind of works and it gives me a little bit softer, maybe almost a calf sound. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I think that's another great idea you guys came up with. So,
Yeah, and some of the, across the market, there are other mini diaphragms, but some companies don't change the size of the frame. They leave the same size frame. They just shrink the tape. It's a smaller tape cut.
okay.
Some people make some companies will make a smaller frame, but not really cut down the frame or the tape. They don't cut the tape down that much either. So we wanted to kind of engineer this thing like special. We wanted to make sure it's small on all sides and but still big on sound. And I can blow it if I get it situated in the right spot in my mouth
Hmm.
because my palate's too big really for it. But man, it'll scream. It'll scream. It makes good quality cow calls. So yeah, we're super tickled with that one too because I know a lot of people will be helped out with that have whether it's kids or ladies or just men that have a narrow palate.
Yeah. Like I said, I use that for some of the calf calling noises and sounds, but I personally use the white Phelps amp call. That's the one that I use
Yep.
probably 90% of the time. I keep the pink Phelps and the red Maverick Phelps with me as well, just in case I want to do something a little different and scream. But I think it's
Sure.
nice to have, I guess I'll call it a little bit of an arsenal or different tools because I've been out calling before and using the white one, and nothing would respond. And literally, out of my own frustration, knowing there's got to be something nearby, I just pulled out the red one and I just gave it the most frustrated scream I've ever given it. And a bull rips one off right, probably 200 yards away. And so I
Yeah.
think it's nice. They sounds like to me they kind of respond differently to different sounds. Maybe they recognize something, but this bull, he was refusing to respond until I gave him that rip and he fired right off. So it's kind of nice to have that arsenal, those tools.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Nobody, I mean, well, maybe somebody does, but nobody goes fishing with only one lure in their tackle box, right? You
Yeah.
know, most guys that fish, they got too many different kind of
Yeah.
lure. They got all of them. Told their wife they paid a lot less for them than they really did too, but
Yeah.
kind of like guns. But you want lots of variety,
Yeah.
and sometimes different folks are not, with their calling abilities, maybe they just can't get all those different tones with one reed, so it takes
Yeah.
two or three different diaphragms to get those desired tones and sounds, and which is cool because at least they've got that option to get out there, mix it up, find out what they're biting on.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that because, when I was a kid, I'd go fishing with my grandpa. We'd go troll fishing, and he made sure that we all had the same triple teaser, but one guy was using blue, one was using orange, one was using gold, one was using yellow, and we found out what they were biting on, and then we'd all switch, right? We'd all switch to that color, and it worked. So, yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, heck yeah.
What about the young and calf call? So that's a new call as well this year, right?
Yeah. So that's kind of a neat call. It's a all it's a one piece machined piece of acrylic, and then it's sandblasted or whatever. But so it's a lot easier to manufacture, instead of having a barrel and then you push the tone board and everything into it. So the barrel, the tone board, everything's one piece except for the little mylar reed that vibrates, and the little thing that fix the little fixture part, and then the hog ring, or the not a hog ring, it's a castration band that goes around it. But that thing makes some really sweet calf calls. Now it's not super loud. You're not going to pull elk from across a canyon with this call. It's a really quiet, discreet type call. If you try to overblow it, it won't even make a sound. So it's designed for that really quiet calling for when those bulls are under 100 yards,
Yeah.
50 yards away. Those just really sweet little chirpy calf calls, and man, it's pretty awesome. Um, you know, regardless of what people or what you think or I think or whoever thinks like why a calf call works.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of folks that have found success over the years using that calf call. So
Well, and I think you made this point in one of your videos that if you're cow hunting, right, that calf call is really going to come in handy for, especially for cow calling or cow hunting. So,
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Or if you're right at the edge of the herd and you just can't bugle that bull in for whatever, you start chirping on that calf call, and he's got a cow with him. She might be like, "Oh, hey, what's up over there? There's a little calf. I need to go check it out." And
yeah,
she drags the bull in front of you. So, and then sometimes, let's face it, bulls are kind of gross. They're kind of into calves too. They want to breed calves, and they'll come right into a calf call sometimes too. So, there's lots of different reasons why it works, but um, I
that,
don't think it's a silver bullet like any call. There's
yeah.
no silver bullet out there, but I think it's just one more really quality elk, realistic elk sound you can add to your arsenal. So.
I keep telling my wife these bulls are perverts, but she don't believe me. She,
She should watch it. She needs to watch some YouTube pictures at Yellowstone or something.
yeah.
They're disgusting.
Well, now I'm going to start looking at my external calls a little differently. Now that you said they're a castration. What is it? Castration ring.
Castration band, yeah, yeah.
It's,
It's funny. I was over at the shop there the other day, and Sandy, Jason's wife, was saying, "Yeah, it's good. We just got the applicator to put those on because it kind of spreads it open real
uh,
wide, and then you just put it on the call and you let it shrink down." I said, "I bet he started talking real nice to you after that thing showed up." You don't want to be too mouthy around one of those things that might not pan out.
that's funny. Well, that's great. I think you guys got some great calls that hopefully they do well this year. I'll have to get my hands on those and try them out because it's always fun to try something new too.
Yeah,
It's exciting to go out and try something just different. Makes it fun. So
right. I always say, for me, calling elk's always an experimentation. I'm experimenting with what that particular elk wants to hear and what kind of calls he wants to hear. And I like trying different sounds and different calls. So I feel like if you think the one thing is the end all be all, that's when maybe you're leaving something laying on, you're leaving some money laying on the table.
Yeah.
Probably try a few other little things and see how they work too.
So what goes into the kind of the process of creating a new call? I mean, to me, it's got to be a challenge. Elk hunting's been around for a long time. Calling's been around for a long time. What kind of goes into that process of creating a new call? I mean, because it's something you need to do, and I don't know if you try to do something each year, but kind of what goes into that process?
Yeah, so you have an idea what you're wanting to do, and then usually starts on a cocktail napkin type of drawing,
Yeah.
and then you talk to an engineer and you say, okay, I want it to look like this, and good thing engineers are smart because they can take dummy ideas like I've got, or like, well, Jason, he's kind of an engineer too, so I guess he can't be called a dummy. He's pretty smart, but we got to get that idea out of our head to a CAD drawing, right? And they draw it up on the computer, and then all the external dimensions, internal dimensions, and that may take a lot of time before it ever looks right when what something sounds like, or the way I say it to you,
Yeah.
and the way you interpret it and write it or make it on the computer may be completely different. So once we go back and forth enough to like, okay, that's what it should look like, then we send it to a 3D printer, and a 3D printer prints it, and we see if it's viable, see if it'll even work.
Yeah.
So we try it, and then usually, well, what we found kind of the first couple go rounds, it's just like, okay, that's not even okay. We see where we messed up. We got to change this,
Yeah.
and this. After about 2 or 3 tries from the very beginning, you start getting something that's like, okay, now it's making noises. It's making the right kind of noises. Let's refine it. Let's take a little bit off of here. Let's put a little bit more on here. We want to make it sure it's user friendly, it's ergonomic or whatever. And then it's also capable of making every single call that we could possibly put through it, that we want it to desire to go through it. So then that usually takes several tries, several swings, several misses until you
Mm-hmm.
figure out what exactly the secret sauce is. And like some of the tube stuff, these guys like Jason and Abram's our engineer that designed that metal tube. They nerd out. They use flow charts, flow diagram. There's like programs that you can use for airflow to measure all the nerdy stuff that
Yeah.
behind the scenes to figure out how the air is going to go in and flow through, get enough back pressure, etc., to make sure it has, it's going to sound right. So there's a lot of that too on the front end before you ever push print on the 3D printer. So
Yeah, well, that's what's great about those 3D printers too, is you can, like you said, you can try multiple variations multiple times, and it doesn't cost a lot to reprint something, make something a little bit different.
oh yeah, yeah. When you're talking about molds and like whether it's a plastic injection mold or a blow mold or whatever, those things are super expensive.
Hmm.
So you want to make sure you have everything dialed and you have your final iteration of whatever it is. Be like, okay, this is it. Then you spend the big money for that mold. So it's incredible what those 3D printers can do now. So you go have the 3D printers whip it up for you, and it's like, oh, cool, man. That now we're talking. So
Do you guys usually have like a brainstorming session to get everybody together and just throw things at the wall and try to come up with some new things?
yeah, we got. In fact, right now we're working on a new elk call for hopefully 2022, and I can't really talk about it, but
Sure.
it's super weird. Jason come up with this weird ideas. I want to do it like this, and I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So him and Abram, our engineer, they go back and forth, and Abram draws this thing up. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm like, I'm staying out of this till I got something to blow on, and and they got that thing sent to the 3D printer. I just got one today, and I feel like we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board.
Oh, nice.
Um, but that's call innovation, right?
Yeah.
You get an idea and you got to keep trying and trying until you get it right. So
Yeah. Do you guys ever try to do any like custom calls, and I can't imagine maybe it's not cost effective. Maybe it isn't very profitable, but
right, yeah, Jason has done a lot of those in the past. Right now, we're not really accepting any orders on custom calls just because we're just so far under the gun trying to keep up with our normal production. But in the past, like the Easy Estrus cow call, then he's done, people say, okay, I want you to make me 3 of this certain color
Yeah.
with my name, my dad's name, and grandpa's name on them,
Yep.
and a little design on it. They're like, cool, just a slide up charge from the normal price, and you got custom calls coming your way, which is kind of a cool thing. So I'm hoping at some point we can kind of get ahead of this call building a little bit to where we can start doing those custom
Yeah.
calls again. Because, man, it's neat because a lot of people have, it's that pass it on down type of call. I'm going to give
Right.
this to my son or whatever, or your 3 best friends that anyone could have.
Yeah.
You all want the same cool call, and or we've done like some really cool things for like a benefit auction or something. And maybe it's a sick kid that's got cancer or something, and we run a big a limited run of those and have them auction some of those off for the benefit of the kid or a guy or a gal or something that's been going through some kind of terrible life-threatening illness. So, we've done a lot of that too in the past. So, and then bugle tube covers. There's like some of these different Facebook groups or whatever that they've got us their art file, their logos, and
Mm-hmm.
we've printed some cool their stuff on some bugle tubes for them on the tube cover. They got a minimum order on those because you got to order X many heat transfers, but yeah, we've done some cool stuff in the past with custom stuff.
Yeah, it makes it
I
fun. I think it'd be cool too if you had like a patch, on the cover where you have just the blank patch, right? Just the black-sided Velcro or whatever, and you can put your custom patches on. Just kind of make it unique. But that's even with the external calls we were talking about a minute ago. I've got mine hanging up in my truck. I like it. I just like the looks of it, and it is cool. Like you said, you could do different colored rings or what different color wood, and it means something to you. I mean, me personally, I'd probably pay $100 for something that looked really cool and was unique to me. That, like I said, you could pass down to somebody. So
Yeah, yeah. Jason's made some beautiful calls out of some really exotic wood, too. That it's just not your average wood. It's like
yeah,
really cool, like Coca-Cola or some other kind of cool. That's probably the only one I could pronounce. But there's all sorts of beautiful exotic woods he's made them out of too. That's really neat.
so somebody asked me, how did the pink Phelps call, the Diaphragm, versus the Maverick, the red Maverick, yours? How did that turn out? Which one was end up selling the most?
Well, we don't really like to talk about that because Jason's kind of a sore loser, so he doesn't want to tell anybody who won. But uh, he's even talking about having a sale, like a founder's sale or something. The only thing that's on sale is that pink call. He's trying to pump those numbers up, but
That's funny.
like he can't beat that Red Army out there. I mean, they're just buying Mavericks.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So let's switch a little bit. Talk about actual hunting. So I'm curious, what
Yeah.
you've done a lot of hunting for a lot of years. You've posted a lot of stuff out on YouTube for everyone to see. But what's one of your most memorable hunts?
Oh man, I've got a lot of them. A lot of times, the most memorable ones are the ones you don't come home with a bull. So then you've tried everything and you got so close and then come home empty-handed. I got a lot of those, and I've talked about this before, but probably my most memorable one or probably my most favorite hunt is well, I've got kind of two. They're kind of neck and neck. So when my son turned 10, well, it's the day before he turned 10, then I took him elk hunting in the backcountry, and he hadn't been elk hunting in the backcountry at that point. And it wasn't like rough and rugged backcountry. I mean, there were some roads and some stuff to drive to access some spots. And he told me on the way out, he's like, Dad, when you get an elk, I'm gonna help you drag it out. I'm like, there's no dragging an elk out of this place. I mean, we're gonna have to cut it up into little pieces and carry it out on our back.
Yeah,
He looked at me like, you don't know what you're talking about. Because he'd seen lots of deer. I
yeah.
brought home lots of deer, and he could, those are manageable. So anyway, right after the first light, I called in this bull. This big 6-point comes in, and I can't quite get a shot. And Austin, he was sitting on the ground behind me, and a spike comes running up and almost steps on him. And anyway, the big bull spooks off, the little bull spooks off, and then he looks at me and he's like, I don't think we're going to be able to drag one of these elk out of here. I'm like, I told you. And later that day, like the last 15 minutes of shooting light, I end up calling in a nice 6-point and shoot at the bull right there, right by the bull was like 5 yards from us, and I shot him, and he didn't go far, tipped over dead, and he's like, so I shot him twice. I shot him like at 5 yards, and he whirled and ran like 5 yards and stopped and looked around. I shot him again, and he goes, Dad, you missed. I'm like, no, I didn't miss. You didn't? I said, no, I hit him right here, and he ran over there and I shot him again. You did? I said, yeah, and he's laying right there dead. He is? So we worked up the bull and then packed it out the next day on his 10th birthday. He got to pack elk meat on his 10th, got to skip school and pack elk meat on his 10th birthday. So that was probably one of my favorite hunts. And then also right there with it was when I called in his first bull with a bow, and he shot it. He was 13, and he ended up shooting this nice 5-point bull. And you know, I feel like that's, as a hunting father, you know, you spend your whole life, you know, raising a son or a daughter or both, and hoping that they'll follow along and want to do some of the fun things you do. And then that all came to fruition whenever he was able to shoot that elk, and that was probably one of the best days ever I had in the woods. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for any parent that hunts, that's something we strive for, you know, to be able to either just even hunt with your kids is awesome, but to be able to see them get one, I mean, that's top notch. That's awesome. So that's cool.
Yeah. Proud papa moment.
Yeah. You know, I thought maybe you might mention, you know, a couple years ago where you had to use that mouth tab, right?
Oh yeah,
Man.
You know, that one, yeah, it was good. It was good. I feel like these other two kind of overshadow it a little bit. But yeah, you know, I try not to look at it like I overcame a lot, because I don't have a lot of real close personal friends with disabilities, but I have friends on social media that have disabilities, you know, whether they're missing an arm or leg or both legs or whatever. And so for me, I felt like shooting an elk with a mouth tab, that was pretty small potatoes compared to some of the stuff these other guys are doing out there with big disadvantages and disabilities. And I kind of feel like, man, I look at them, those guys, for inspiration. It's like, man, what am I doing? I'm like, these guys are over here just being gritty, as they have everything against them, and I'm going to complain about this little thing here. So yeah. But yeah, that was a good hunt. I will, you know, I don't want to take anything away from that hunt, because it was a good hunt and a really fun time with Dusty. So we had a really good time on that.
You should have put some false teeth in your mouth, and then you pulled it back and let it go and let them come flying out.
Come flying out. Yeah, you know, I think about anybody could probably shoot an elk with a mouth tab.
Really?
Unless you had false teeth. And then, you know, that I don't know. You know, maybe comment below, guys, if you got false teeth and have shot a mouth tab. I don't know if you could or not. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's probably one of the biggest questions you've got. I mean, anyone I've mentioned that you shot a bull, you know, using a mouth tab you had to pull back with, their first thought is it didn't rip his teeth out, you know?
Yeah.
And I guess that's what most of us would have thought initially, is, you know, it would tear some teeth out, but it sounds like it works out pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I'd heard about it, you know. I knew it was possible. I know good old Larry D. Jones, you know, the pioneer of elk hunting. Mm-hmm. I know he shot a mouth tab with a recurve bow. I'm like, shoot, if he can do it with a recurve, I might be able to have a shot at doing it with a compound.
Yeah.
And then I got on YouTube and I watched some videos, and I watched John Dudley shot a grizzly bear with a mouth tab several years ago. And then I was watching this guy, he's an Olympic athlete or an Olympic bow shooter. And he had like one arm and one leg. And I'm like, well, shoot, man, I have no excuses. I'm like, look at this man. I mean, he's overcoming all odds to shoot this mouth tab. So I messaged my buddy at the local sports shop or the local pro shop and kind of told him what I was thinking. And went down there, and he's like, yeah, man, watch it, bring the videos in, we'll figure it out. And so we started messing around with it. And the very first time I pulled it back with my teeth, you don't know what, is this going to hurt? Is
Oh
it going
yeah.
to like smack me in the face? Is my bow going to blow up? What's going to happen here? And it's kind of intimidating. But once you kind of pull it, well, you don't pull it back, you kind of push it forward,
Right.
and you kind of line up your peep and you line up your housing and find your sight pin. And oh boy, I hope nothing, my face don't get ripped off here. And then I just kind of let go with my teeth, and it went off. I'm like, oh, that was kind of anticlimactic. I mean, it was, oh, that's all that
Huh.
happened. Cool. I think I can do this. So then
Nice.
we made refinements on draw length and peep height and stuff to where we could finally make it to where it was easy to, line up the sights and stuff.
Yeah.
And once I did that, it got very accurate in no time at all. It's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be able to do this. But I couldn't sit and just shoot round after round after round. Um, I could only shoot probably maybe 6 arrows, and then I'd have to take a break for a while
Mm-hmm.
because my teeth, because you bite with your molars on this thing,
Oh,
and
okay.
it would get kind of sore, your gums and stuff
Sure.
would get sore. But it never felt like I was pulling or holding a lot of weight, really. Um, I got my bow down to 55 pounds. That's what I hunted with. And it didn't seem like I was really, I didn't have a lot of pressure there. More than anything, my
Oh, I
neck,
bet.
I can really feel a lot in my neck more so than anything. That was where my fatigue would be. And then just trying to find the right stance that was repeatable. And once I worked on my form, that's what I really wanted to kind of figure out was the form of shooting. Then once I figured out the form, it got really good. So then I would just do a little short practice session, shoot 4 arrows, and then go break, go work for
Mm-hmm.
a bit, and then go back and shoot 4 more, and then I got it dialed in. Where it's like these elk are in trouble if they're at 20 or 30 yards. If they're at 40, they're pretty safe. I'm not going to
Yeah.
shoot, except for a follow up shot.
Yeah.
So but a 20, 30, 40 yard pin, and I called Dusty and I said, hey, I don't know if you're up for it still. You want to come up and we'll try it? And he's like, heck yeah. I said, well, it may just be a grouse hunting trip. I don't know how this is going to work. It had been pretty rainy, so we had to kind of stick to some easier country to hunt, more gentle stuff, because I was afraid of getting some really steep, slippery stuff and falling and putting my arm out again and really
Yeah.
re-injuring the torn rotator cuff. So we hunted the easy stuff, and it turned out. It turned out. We got pretty lucky.
And you drew, as I recall in that video, you drew back pretty quick. I mean, that elk didn't he come in pretty quick, and you
Oh
had to
yeah.
draw pretty fast on that.
Oh yeah. I turned around and took about 4 or 5 steps. I'm like, oh shoot, there he is, and pulled my arrow out, knocked it, drew it, shot. It was pretty fast, like within a couple 3 seconds.
So what's tougher, to
Uh,
find the mouth tab to put in your mouth, or to try to put a release on the D loop?
um, Release on the D loop's kind of tough sometimes
Yeah.
because you don't want to lose eye contact
Uh
with the
huh.
bull, right? But you're gonna have to glance down, and clip your release onto that D loop.
Uh huh.
But without mouth tab, I just had to raise my bow up. I just had to grab the mouth tab with my free hand and just put it right in my mouth while I maintained eye contact, and then I went for it. So it was probably almost quicker with a mouth tab to
Hmm.
draw. If I'd have fumbled, the arrow, like getting it knocked, if I'd have fumbled that, I might have
Yeah.
not. It'd have been a different story maybe, but um,
Huh.
I practiced that a lot. That same, like, pull it out of the quiver, knock it, that whole process over
Uh
and
huh.
over. And I think watching a lot of newer archers that haven't spent a lot of time, just maybe they're shooting in their backyard, pulling their arrows out of maybe out of a holder or something, or out of their hip quiver. But by practicing, like pulling it out of your quiver every single time, do
Mm-hmm.
the same exact movements over and over and over again, you it becomes commonplace. That way, during crunch time, you don't fumble, you don't drop
Yeah.
the ball.
Yeah.
Which, if you're not used to that, if you're just shooting out of a hip quiver in your backyard, yeah, there's that opportunity of that you may fumble and you just may not get that shot you wanted. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good idea. I hadn't really thought about that. Some of those other things you got to do, that just to kind of repeat to make sure you don't mess it up, because anything can
yeah,
happen when that in that heat of that moment, stuff happens.
well, elk hunting is such a comedy of errors. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many little things that have to click exactly
Yeah.
perfect. Like, oh, I don't know, like back in the old days before D-loops, I called in a couple giant bulls for my brother, and everything was right. Bull comes in, he's knocked up, got his release on his string, pulls back, arrow falls off. Well, he had his release kind of tipped up and applying pressure on the back of the knock, and it kind of pushed it forward and
Mm-hmm.
almost off the string to where when he pulled it back, it just fell off the string. Those little errors. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to work those out. You got to figure those out. You got to stay cognitive, and you got to stay present in your shot process. Because if you don't, if you just kind of black out, uh, anything can happen.
Yeah, I remember I drew back, put the arrow on the rest, and drew back, and I watched the arrow swing all the way to the left. Came right off the rest and just swung all the way around. It's off to the side
Oh,
of me. Yep.
yeah.
Never know what's gonna happen. So, how's the shoulder now?
It's good. It still feels a little weird from time to time. It don't feel normal like it did before. It doesn't feel like the other one,
Yeah.
but it doesn't hurt to draw my bow.
Oh, that's
So
good.
that's the main thing. Um, I still have, like, if I reach way out and try to lift something heavy,
Yeah.
it doesn't work as good as it used to. But I'm also getting older, and they say as you get older, you kind of lose some of that weird,
Yeah.
dummy strength as a younger man. So
Yeah.
it could be that too. I don't know, but I
Well,
feel
that's
like I'm
good.
still a little bit stronger with my other hand, my good arm.
Well, that's good. It's getting better. So, what can we expect of you this fall? What's the plans? You got any big plans, big hunts? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm gonna be super busy this fall. So I kick it off here in Idaho. My brother is gonna come down and bow hunt with me this year. We're gonna chase him around. Hopefully, elk still bugle again. We got weird. It's a weird year. Lots of forest fires. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of national forest stuff is closed down. A lot of private timber company ground is closed down. So I'm just, you know, all fingers crossed, hoping our area doesn't get closed down because of fires. And then I leave from there and go to New Mexico, and I'll be meeting up with Ryan Lampers and Phelps. Phelps doesn't have a tag for where we're going to be at. He'll be there a week early hunting with Steve Ranella, and he's going to come over and hunt with us when that hunt's done. So we'll be there for the second archery season, basically, in New Mexico. And I've heard New Mexico's green this year. Like, there's a lot of grass. That's good. Kind of like different than the Northwest. The Northwest is dry and burning up. So
Yeah.
hopefully we have a really great hunt there. And then we go home for a couple days, and then Jason and I will go to Montana, and we're gonna go hunting with Giannis Patelis,
Uh-huh.
and go hunt up there first part of October with archery gear, and see if we can find a couple silly bulls that want to play a game with us. I don't know. Last year we hunted that same time in October. Trent Fisher and I did. It was tough. There wasn't a lot of bugles, but we were kind of going blind too. We went all over the place, and we didn't really find a lot of bugling bulls. But I think we might have an ace in the hole. Giannis knows a few spots. He's hunted Montana
Oh, that's
before,
good.
so he'll probably maybe give us a couple little hidey holes to maybe get us in the right area. So
Nice. Got some videos planned for everybody to watch.
yeah, yeah. In fact, probably by the time this thing airs, then the launch will have already happened. But we did a film project with Loophole last year, 2020, when we went to New Mexico, and that's gonna air tonight
Oh, nice.
at 7 p.m.
Oh, nice.
So that's cool. There'll be a 4-part series of our New Mexico elk hunt with John Gabriel, Jason Phelps, and I. And then all these elk hunts that we're doing this fall, we're filming them, so you'll be able to see them on our channel. That one we're doing with Giannis, you'll probably see it on the Meat Eater Hunts
Uh-huh.
YouTube channel. And then Jason and I are going to go, and his buddy Tyson, we're going to go mule deer hunting in Idaho in October with rifles. It's a wilderness, so we can't film. So that's
Oh,
that's
really?
the poo poo on that. It's wilderness. You can't get a film permit. So we want to do things by the book. So yeah, we can't film. So we're gonna go and just have a great time mule deer hunting. And then also later on in November, Jason and I will be going to Montana mule deer hunting because we drew that combo tag, general combo tag
Mm-hmm.
for elk and deer. So we'll go back over. He says he has a honey hole. We'll see about that.
So with now that you're kind of, I guess I'll call it in the hunting industry, are you get more opportunities to hunt?
That's basically a lot of my job right now is content creation. So that means hunting, all the time. That's
Yeah.
not I don't take that as vacation time. That's work time. That's considered work time through with my job. So
I'd
I
charge
can't
OT
complain.
then for that.
Yeah, I get some comp time for that. So no, they're super good to me about taking personal vacation too. For they want you to take your personal vacation to spend time with your family.
Oh,
Because they
yeah,
know away from family hunting and stuff that's hard on a family life,
sure.
So like, you guys need to make sure you take time with your families and go do that stuff too. So that's been really good.
Should we expect Hulk Hogan or is it Randy Savage to make an appearance this year? Or
Man, I hope. Man, well, Phelps, he did not like that at all.
didn't he?
He I'm like, all right, double or nothing. I was all this year. I've been okay, double or nothing. What are we going to bet this time? He's like, I'm not doing any more stupid bets. He won't do it. Uh, I
Nice.
wish he would. I wish he would.
It's funny. I was, if you just Google the term Phelps online, I was expecting to come up with Phelps game calls, but what you get is Michael Phelps in a Speedo. So for anyone
Oh,
listening, you want to put in there Phelps game calls or Phelps game because
uh, hey, I wonder if we could sponsor him and put our logo right on the front of his speedo,
there you go. Or
maybe on the back even.
that could be your bet this year. Maybe you can have Jason be in a Speedo or something if he loses.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. I'm gonna work on that.
Uh, Well, there's just a couple other things I wanted to ask you. Just kind of curious about that we usually like to ask any of our guests. Um, what are some like lessons learned, things that you learned over the years that you would share with other hunters, or maybe someone up and coming new that you would share with others that they should consider or do.
Well, I've kind of always had this idea in my head, but I think I've learned a lot of people don't always see it this way, as much as the kind of ethics or standards you hold yourself to is not necessarily what everyone else holds themselves to. And that can kind of be frustrating sometimes because, when you meet people in the woods, there's some people they're like, hey, it's national forest. I can go anywhere you want. That's true, but I always kind of like to, if I see somebody in the woods and even if I'm close enough to talk to them, say, hey, how's it going? Which way are you going? I'll go the other way or whatever. Not always, people don't always do that, but I feel like one thing, we're all in this together and there's
Yeah,
so much division out there. Whether you're bow hunting, rifle hunting, muzzleloader hunting, spear hunting, whatever it is, everybody needs to put their swords down
yeah,
and just get along. And when you see each other, be good to each other, be kind to each other, help each other out. Because if we don't, this is all going to disappear. And they're trying real hard right now, and they'll get their way. Divided we fall, united we stand. So guys, just be good to each other out there. And I've always kind of had that idea, like be good to other people anyway. But you see it more now than ever. I
yeah,
don't know if because it's new people that didn't have anybody to mentor them. They're getting new to hunting, and maybe they just didn't have anybody to mentor them. Is it cool to you know sit in somebody else's tree stand? Is it cool to you know you know barge right by the guy on the trail with your
right.
ATV? When he's sitting there, trying to he have to eat hiked in somewhere. I mean, be good to each other. I mean,
Yeah,
it's simple. If I get to a trailhead where there's not a lot of country behind where the vehicle's parked, I'll go somewhere else. I don't want to go in there. I
yeah.
don't want to have to compete with another hunter. I don't want to mess it up for him. I don't want him messing up for me. But I don't know if a lot of people understand that or think about that. So, um, and as far as like, so that's the hunting side of it. But I think also too, like hunting industry stuff. There's a lot of people that are like, man, I want to get in the hunting industry. Man, how do you get in the hunting industry? Can you tell me, like, there's a secret sauce to it?
Yeah.
But I'd say there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. And I feel like if you try, maybe I'm wrong, if you try super hard to try to get in the hunting industry, and maybe you try super hard for the wrong reasons, that won't come across authentic. And,
Yeah.
it may be even harder to get into the hunting industry as far as it, like, becoming known or a personality or something. Just be you. Do what you do, and do it a lot, and just put it out there, and your people will find you. Like Gary V or Gary Vaynerchuk, I'll throw him another one. He always says it don't matter if you're making crazy cat videos or whatever it is, whatever you're good at and whatever your thing is, there's probably millions of weird people just like you out there. And if you keep putting that content out there, they're going to find you.
Yeah.
So, stay true to yourself. And then, as far as like sponsorships and stuff with companies, people, they're always asking, how do you do it, or how do you get sponsored, or this or that. I can't remember who told me this, but one time somebody said, companies are really interested in what you've done, not what you can do for them. So what you've done leading up to the point where you asked for something, you've shown that you're capable of doing cool stuff and delivering.
Yeah.
If you haven't done anything up into that point and said, hey, you give me some money or some products, and then I'll do some cool stuff and give it to you, it's a little weird, because it's like, but is that guy capable, or girl, or whoever,
right,
are they capable of connecting on that? So build a portfolio, start somewhere, build your stuff, build, you may have to operate on the free. You're gonna have to buy your stuff. I mean, I bought my stuff for years. I still buy stuff.
Yep.
Buy your stuff, promote the stuff, use the stuff, and don't be here we are today with Phelps Game Call. I mean, you don't want to be an infomercial. Just use it. If you like it, use it, and tell people why you like it, and then build content. And then eventually someday you'll have a portfolio built. Then you can take it and show it to these different companies and say, okay, I'd really like to work together as a partnership. And they look and see what you've done. They're like, yeah, I like that a lot. That's cool. It'd be a good fit. Come on aboard. That's how it works. But I think there's like some kind of disconnect, because there's a lot of folks that think that, just I blow an elk call, or I blow a goose call, or I can shoot a bow, I should get money for shooting a bow. I mean, I don't think Tim Gillingham or John Dudley just stepped into free bows and free money, right?
Yeah.
They worked tails off, and one did some things, and then they were rewarded for it. So
that's awesome. I can't agree more on all fronts, all those things you pointed out. Yeah, I'm impressed. I appreciate the things you just said. I think that's good information for everyone, especially just like you said, with the ethics and treating each other with respect. You're right. I mean, if we don't protect our ability to be able to hunt, it's going to be taken away from us. So we've got to stand together, because too often, we are, I guess I'll call it some infighting, if you will, amongst the hunters, whether it's a rifle hunter versus, archery, whatever it may be. We really need to, like I said, stand united so we can continue to do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, hey, Dirk, I'm going to let everyone, I'm just going to kind of end this here, but I want you to stay on the phone for just a minute if you can. So,
yeah.
All right. I really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we will talk to you later.
Thank you.